Yes, what's good, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Veterans Minimum, live from the Blue Wire studio here in lovely Sin City, Las Vegas, at the Wynn. Finally, I got my guy on the other end. I can't wait to get him into the studio, but I've had some people already reach out and be like, yo, what's good with Allen? Where Allen been at? And A-Double is here joining me and looking as fresh as ever. Let's go, baby. Got the sweater on. New sweaters dropping.
Gold.
New sweaters dropping at the end of, early November. So cheap plug. Allen, what's good, man? I miss you, bro.
Oh, man. I miss you too, man. I'm so happy for you, seeing all the pictures, all the posts. You're thriving out there. And yeah, it's been a hectic September for me between Fashion Week and DR wedding. But, man, I'm back in full football force. Falcons for the first time in 5 years, like pretty good. We'll see about that. The Giants, hey, get ready to wake up 6:30 in the morning where you're at. It's been a cool season, and man, we have a lot to talk about.
Dude, so quick story. I completely forgot about the London game, as I usually do every time that this happens. I just forget.
It's understandable.
But over here, it's even worse. At least back home in New York, when I would forget the London game, I would have football at Casino Park with everyone. So everyone's like on their phone and looking at their fantasy team or the bets, and people are talking about it. And I'm like, oh shit, there's a football game on now. But over here, dude, I woke up like in the third quarter of the Vikings game, and I was like, what the hell is going on? But yeah,
Andy Dalton.
Yeah, it's been interesting how the games end over here so early, dude. And it's just like, yo, I went to the gym Sunday night after Sunday Night Football because I was bored. I just didn't know what to do with myself. So you'll see, man, when you come out here, it's pretty lit, dude. And I wanted to mention how you were busy with all the stuff that you were doing, and you're doing some really cool things. And I was just like, yo, let's just pick it back up in October, man. Don't make it too difficult for you. Don't make it too difficult for me. But we're back. We're back breaking shit down, and I'm excited.
Yes, for foreseeable future, we're here. And, man, kind of a weak slate, but, hey, it's been an interesting season. Like, I know this week, I was looking at the slate, and I'm just like, oh, this is a bit tricky. Like, there's not much to get overly thrilled about, but I think we have more than enough action to digest from the first 4 weeks of the season.
I do think that there are some banger of football games on. Like the games of the week that we're going to get to at the end of the show are really fascinating for many reasons. There's revenge factors. There's all these other things going on with matchups as well. So I'm fascinated by that. But I want to play a game with you, Allen, before we get into week 5, previewing some of the games of the week. And I came up with this idea of stock up, stock down, right? And it's us talking about either a player or a team or a scenario, whatever it might be. And you determine, I determine, and we'll have the fans chime in. Hit us up on social media at Veterans Minimum, everywhere you can find the show. VeteransMinimum.com is where you can find everything for the show, the most recent YouTube videos, the whole 9. And with this, what I want to do is stock up, stock down. I'll present something, you tell me, and I would love to hear from the fans as well. So I'm going to lead off with one. Stock up Romeo Doubs. I think he is improving every week, and you could see it in the box score, right? He has 8 targets in back-to-back games. And Aaron Rodgers was on the Pat McAfee show, which he does Aaron Rodgers Tuesdays, which is amazing. That's like my favorite. I don't really tune into much other content, but that's one that I try to make time to definitely check it out because Rodgers is a fascinating individual for many reasons. But he talked about Doubs, and the most promising thing I would say for Doubs, and if you're a Packer fan, is the trust I think that Rodgers has in him already. Because, dude, he went to him on that 3rd down to win that game against the Patriots. And to me, dude, that was big. He could have went to Cobb. He could have went to the tight end. He could have went to Lazard, but they dialed up max protection, a deep bomb to Doubs, and it was very reminiscent of did Dez catch it or not. And it was funny that they had Tony Romo on the call, and Romo was like, "Yeah, it's a little difficult bringing that ball in," But to me, dude, I really think Dobbs is going to be a problem, man. And we've seen it with these Packer wide receivers in the past. Those guys that are later in the draft, they come out and they're pretty productive. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be able to replicate what Adams did because no one can and no one will. But I do think that Dobbs, man, the stock is up. Like, I already added him on my fantasy team, and I think he's going to be a problem moving forward. And he's only going to get better.
Right. Yeah, and I just think earning that trust, because with Rodgers, it's hard to earn that trust because he's just somebody that, he's seen his fair share of receivers, and we know the Green Bay organization hasn't necessarily provide him with much resources at the wide receiver position. So to get him, it was big because Rodgers was talking him up in August. So I think people had a feeling like he might be the one to emerge and not necessarily Christian Watson. And that was just like the complete package. I know Lazard has the most experience, and I think he's leading them in receiving yards, but I think that was more the complete package. Like, he's a really good route runner. He creates more separation. I think as the season progresses, you'll see Rodgers target him potentially 8 to 10 times a game.
Yeah, he's already, like I said, back-to-back games. He has eight targets. And again, I think, to me, especially if you're a young wide receiver, when your quarterback goes to you in big spots, that is where you understand the trust that quarterback has with you. Like, dude, I know we talked about this in the past, but I'll never forget the Rams were playing in Baltimore, and they were playing the Ravens, obviously, in Baltimore. But it was a 4th down play, and they went to Odell on 4th down, and he picked up the 4th down conversion on like a game-winning drive. To me, that was all I needed to know about Odell and him working out in L.A. because it was still early and him coming to L.A., and the whole talking point was, he's a locker room cancer. He left one team in shambles and all that. And that, to me, was when I realized Odell's going to be a problem with them. And then, as we saw, they go on to win the Super Bowl. So that was very eye-opening to me, seeing what happened with Dobbs. Give me one of your stock ups or stock downs. It could be whichever one.
If you want to stick in the NFC, and this is a unit I've been raving about for years, but the 49ers defense, I don't think there's been a more dominant unit so far in the season. Like, what they're doing between, okay, they've had matches with Chicago, and Denver, I know their offense is stumbling, but they're just completely erasing teams. And they've had to deal with some injuries. Ark Armstead hasn't been all the way healthy. I know a couple of their core pieces, like, because that front four is always changing. Like, they have a lot of free. But you see guys like Kevin Givens, Delano, just a bunch of array of talent. I'm blanking on another dude. Nose tackle. Just, they have so much different talent. Because the 49ers, they always seem to be that team that's so injury prone, but their D-line goes so deep, and you're just seeing it week after week, generating that pressure. Like, Nick Bosa isn't as great as he is. He's not a one-man army, and D'Amico Ryans knows how to dial up that pressure. And I think one of the coolest things with the 49ers is I think the linebacker position gets forgotten about, and they have 3 linebackers that literally could play all 3 downs. We know how special Fred Warner is, but Dean Greenlaw was a huge return. He barely played last year. And then they have Al-Shahir, and it's just having these players, the range, the tackling ability, the field awareness, like, they're just flying all over the field. And now, they have legit corners too. I think Travaris Ward has quietly been one of the best signings as well. Like, you saw him Monday night just completely stifling Allen Robinson. I know there's been a lot of Allen Robinson slander, but at least, like, you look at the red zone, like, he's locked in. Like, they tried throwing a fade to Allen Robinson. Ward was all on that. And then the emergence of Hufanga, like, this is just a special unit. And year after year, they just consistently reload, and they're ready to compete. And given the quarterback limitations of San Fran, they need his defense to be at the top of the league. And I think with this defense here, regardless of what Jimmy does, they're going to be in every game, and that makes them a Super Bowl contender, along with this star power they have at the receiver and tight end position.
Dude, you are absolutely right, man. Their defense, and it was interesting at first. I was like, damn, how's he talking about the Niners linebackers being a forgotten unit? But I get what you meant, right? And like, Warner is so,
I think the position gets forgotten about. That was the kind of point I was trying to make.
Right. But I think you're right, though. Like, they have been injury prone in the past too, and they just seem to always just find these guys. Like, even when they had Patrick Willis and Bowman, remember they had that dude that retired from football after his rookie season from Wisconsin, the linebacker, Chris Borland.
Yeah,
I remember watching him in college. And granted, look, I'm not the biggest college football fan, but he was a guy that I even knew, and he was always making plays. And that his first year, some of those guys got hurt, and he stepped in. And it's just like, they're entering that territory where if they draft a defensive player, no matter when they draft them, like that guy might be an issue, like a good issue. Like he's gonna be a problem if he gets on the field. So I like that call on the
Are they
stock.
reaching the Steelers receiver territory? If they draft a defensive player like the Steelers draft a receiver, just bank on it. He's going to be a star.
Yeah, Steelers, yeah, for sure with the wide receivers. Stock up, dude. The Atlanta Falcons for me.
Oh, here we go.
I didn't get a chance on the last episode. Shout to Shane Jackson. I had him on. We've worked in the past together on some stuff, and we were talking about our quarterly awards. And I always like to base it off what my expectations were for a team coming into the year, as opposed to what the talking points are. Right. So, for example, I had Miami as a playoff team. I thought the Jaguars were going to be good. I had Philly winning the NFC. So those aren't surprises to me. What was a surprise has been Atlanta. And Atlanta, 4-0 against the spread, Allen, making a lot of people money if they're backing the Falcons. And, dude.
That Rams game.
I'm going to defer to you on this one because you're the expert when it comes to the Falcons and you cover them and you're a fan of them. To me, they're fun, finally. Because it's been a while since they've been fun, dude. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And I think it's a collection of, obviously, scheme, because what Arthur Smith's doing, like, no team's running play action more than the Falcons. Like, they're just so persistent with, like, borderline almost 50% of the time. And I think they just understand their roster. Like, the Falcons had such bad play callers after Kyle Shanahan. And, Matt Ryan, I think, as we've seen, has been steadily on the decline. And, say what you want about Marcus Mariota, but he makes some gutsy plays. And just, I think the personnel all fits properly. But now you have the running game, and then you use play action, and you have the Twin Towers in London and Pitts. It's just, there's a lot of dynamism with this team, and I think just having that coaching advantage because of what Arthur Smith does, because like it seems you see right now in Tennessee, I know they've won a couple games, but like Tennessee, no one's fearing Tennessee. I think they're kind of reaping the effects of not having Arthur Smith. I think Arthur Smith is legitimately one of the top play callers in the league, and you're seeing it working with this team that's clearly in rebuild mode, but yet they could be 4-0, albeit probably should be 3-1. Saints classic Falcons that week one collapse, but it's just been fun, and I think they understand the roster, and there's going to come a time where I think we will see a quarterback upgrade. I think Ritter will play eventually, and who knows where the pass game will go, because right now, what they're doing is not quite sustainable, but oh man, you gotta love it, especially with with Pitts, London, and Cordell Patterson. Albeit Patterson is now out for a month.
Dude, yeah, for sure. Like they're fun. They're fun. They're interesting. They're keeping games close. They're not getting blown out. And I feel like that's the best kind of rebuild you could be in. That was another thing I was talking about, like with the Seahawks, right? Like the Seahawks are competitive. They have all these assets that they've acquired in these trades that they've made. And they're fielding a pretty respectable team. They're not going to go out there and get throttled, which is nice. And if you're a fan, it'll make it at least enjoyable for you to be watching some of these games. Give me one of your stock up, stock down.
If I have to go stock up, it's a bit of a generic choice, but I just think some people are writing off the Chiefs, and the Chiefs have arguably been the best team in the league so far. I know the Bills will take the crown for now, but I think when it comes to overall performances, look, they should have beat Indianapolis. That game was just a couple of missteps, a couple of weird moments. Like they completely dominated that Indianapolis game. But besides that, like this offense is still humming. I think Andy Reid, just what he did against, to me, a top 3 defense in Tampa Bay, like they just every play just seemed like they were hitting. Like, the way they're utilizing Travis Kelce right now, a lot of people were concerned going into the year. Travis Kelce, a year older, what's he going to do without Tyreek Hill? But the way they're moving him pre-snap, the way they're just getting clean looks. Kelce's still smooth as ever. Made Levante David look silly on that touchdown. I love the way they're utilizing Kelce, and then you have Smith-Schuster using him to his strengths in the intermediate short areas. Using on a couple of screens. Ball Scanling finally getting involved vertically. Pacheco's now getting more snaps because of Edwards-Helaire. As much as I tried to defend him in the past, there's just too much inconsistency with him. So you got to limit his snaps. But this Chiefs offense, they're not missing a beat right now. For what they did against Tampa Bay, to me, was one of the top performances of the season. I did not expect them to pretty much have a flawless performance. And then the defense, they just got to make timely plays. That's all they have to do. Just don't allow 30 points, and they're probably going to win. So, kudos to the Chiefs. They are clearly the class of the AFC West, which I know we hyped up a lot. And it's been pretty disappointing due to certain injuries and other circumstances. But the Chiefs, they're going to be here come January, possibly February.
Dude, looking back at it now, it's wild to think that you could have gotten plus money on them to win the division. Because yeah, they were like plus 140, plus 130 in some places because you had the hype for the Broncos, you had the hype for the Chargers, which I bought up all that hype with the Chargers, and I haven't sold all my stock on the Chargers. I'm still holding on to tickets and whatnot, and I still think they're going to be. Yeah, it's like I'm in the sharpshooter in the middle of the ring, and I'm reaching for that bottom rope. Like that's exactly what it kind of is with the Chargers because they're losing guys left and right. But with Kansas City, and I just put a post up on my Instagram and for the show. Mahomes to me right now, it's the revenge tour, and what I mean by that is people like Roy Jones Jr. said, y'all must have forgot. Like, they must have forgotten, man, because everyone's talking about Josh Allen and Herbert and Joe Burrow and all these guys, Lamar, right? And it's like, dude, I'm still 27 years old. I'm not 37, which, I mean, for quarterbacks now, they're probably playing until 47 the way things are going. But he's still a young dude, right? Like, I'd still take him to, if I'm building a franchise, if not first, I'm taking him in the top 3. And he has 11 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. They're beating you in different ways than they did in years past. And they haven't missed a beat, dude. They put a 40 on Arizona, which, all right, Arizona's not exactly a juggernaut, but they put a 40 spot up on Tampa Bay, who we consider to be one of the classes of the NFC. And yeah, that game they lost to the Colts, dude, it was a wacky game. Special teams, mishaps, missing chip shot field goals, Kelsey dropping a pass. Kelsey even went to social media and he was like, yo, my bad, everybody. It won't happen again. You know, hats off to the Colts. Like one of those like politically correct responses and whatnot. And then they came back against the Chargers in a division game in which the Chargers last year beat them in Kansas City. So, yeah, man, it was wild. Some of the takes about Kansas City. And I think the idea of not having Tyreek has been massive, right? But it hasn't hurt them. Like, him not being there hasn't really hurt them. Their offense changed, and then you see what he's doing in Miami also. I think everyone won in that deal. Like, Kansas City got all these.
They want to invest in. They want to pay that contract, so they made the best of it, and they're going to reload through the draft. So, of course, I do want to mention with Kansas City, besides Philly, I think they have the best offensive line in the league. I think between Tooney, Trey Smith, Humphrey, they're just moving people. And Orlando Brown's a bit of a liability pass protection-wise, but, like, you saw that running game. Like, Tampa Bay does not get bullied like that, and they manhandled them. I think they almost ran for 200 yards. So, wow, what a performance. And I just think the Chiefs, I can't wait for that Bills game next week.
Oh, dude, that game is going to be a banger. I can't wait. I can't wait for that one. That's the one. That's definitely going to be the one for sure. My stock down, dude, and the more I think of it, the more I feel like this take is validated. It's the Lions, man. Am I being harsh before I get into my spiel?
I mean, when you have the worst defense in the league, you're not being harsh. Like, we got to take the love for Dan Campbell aside. Like, that defense is the worst in the league. They are abysmal at every level. Like, what they're doing right now is just inexcusable. So they deserve criticism. We know they're in a clear rebuild, but you can't defend their defensive showings.
Dude, they're giving up monster games to dudes that are bona fide backups in the league, right? Like Geno Smith lit them up.
Yeah. Offensive player of the week, Geno Smith.
Yeah. Put some respect on his name. You're right. Carson Wentz, who he's been an abomination in Washington. He played really well against them. Philly, I'll give him a pass on Philly. But also, Philly jumped out to that monster lead in that game. And then, you know, against Minnesota, they had Minnesota's number, but then they couldn't get a stop when they needed it, too. They're down.
That was the one respectable performance.
Right, but they're up 10 in the fourth quarter, and you know that Kirk is the kind of quarterback. I mean, we've seen it all this time. You put a little pressure on him. And not even I'm talking about like pass rusher pressure and quarterback pressure. I'm talking about like, dude, we got 15 minutes or we're losing this game kind of pressure. He's going to fold. And it's just that they're just giving up monster games to everybody. And, this week they're playing New England in New England. It's going to be the first game that the Lions play outside of a dome. So it's, Cali boy Jared Goff. It might be a little shaky for them out there in New England. And I know it's not exactly sub-zero conditions yet, but I just think Detroit, man, like they're cool. They're the Hard Knocks team. Everybody was betting them in the markets because it always happens. When you have a team on Hard Knocks, they're going to get way more action than they should. The Lions are still in a rebuild. They were plus 300 to make the playoffs. We're not exactly talking about a Chargers or the Ravens here. This is a team that they had the number 2 pick in the draft last year. So let's pump the brakes a little bit. But I also think the stock down is because they're very bad defensively.
Yeah, and I know they're 31st in defensive span. Like you look at the defense, other than Hutchinson and Okuda, like, there's not much star talent there. You don't look at any of those players and be like, oh wow, he could be a blue chip player. You know, both those guys they're kind of banking on as their franchise core pieces. So we'll see. I also want to mention when you talk about Lions Patriots, the revenge game of no one cares. Matt Patricia.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
nobody's feeling that revenge game for Matt Patricia. Who likes Matt Patricia?
Man, I mean, who knows?
Bill Belichick likes Matt Patricia.
Yeah, because he gave him another job. Yeah, immediately. Give me your last one for this before we get into games of the week.
Man, I know we talked about Romeo Dobbs before, but I'm really down with the Packers. I just think a lot of just uninspiring performances. I think Rodgers has missed on a lot of throws. I think I saw a stat 38% of his throws are behind the line of scrimmage. I thought pick 6 was on him. The Dobbs fumble was a poorly thrown ball. He's not accurate right now. And I don't think Green Bay's having quite the success they thought they were going to have utilizing Dillon and Jones together. I think they're running the ball pretty well, but passing wise, they're not getting those mismatches that we saw in the past with Aaron Jones. And then defensively, I thought they were going to be one of the best defenses, but here they just look kind of soft. I don't know if it's schematically, but it's just Billy Zapp was getting some pretty high percentage looks. He was just throwing crosses across the field, lobbing it up there. We're just like, where is this defense coming from? And the pass rush hasn't quite met that expectation. So Green Bay, they've had a pretty favorable schedule so far, and I expected more from them. And the Tampa Bay game, okay, credit to them. That was a pretty solid performance, but I just think we got to see more offensively. And considering all they invested in the defense, this should be a borderline top 5 unit. They're not playing at that level.
I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I'm going to push back a little bit on the Packers defense seems to make stops when they do need to make stops, though, like timely stops. And when the Patriots went up in the fourth quarter, they were able to get off the field. And to me, that's what you want in a defense, and that's what you want in a defense in which you've invested first-round pick after first-round pick, and you're paying big money to a lot of guys on the defense. That's what you want while the offense is trying to find their footing, because we love the running game. You're going to need to air it out at some point. And I don't like that stat that you said about him throwing the ball behind the line of scrimmage, because that's not the Rodgers that I love. I want gunslinger. And I know he's such a weird case study. And I mean weird in the nicest way possible and in a positive way, because he does take shots and chances, and he does put balls in certain spots where you're like, holy shit, how'd he complete that? And he doesn't really turn the ball over. That's why him throwing the pick 6 was like, holy hell, what is happening? But it was on him. That was just, that pass was intercepted before it even left his hand. It's like, no, we can't do that one. So I think
he's admitted publicly that he's not playing well either.
Yeah.
So I think he's well aware.
No, he holds himself accountable for sure. Before we get into the games of the week, you wanted to mention up a stat about running, right? Because you're pro running back's getting paid, bro.
Listen, I just like variance. Like, we all love high-powered offenses that are throwing the ball, 40, 50 times a game. But in NFL, what makes the sport so great is the unpredictability. We want to see teams win in different ways. And with this past week, we had the Giants, the Falcons, the Eagles, the Raiders, the Titans. All these teams have more rushing yards than net passing yards. And think about that. That's pretty remarkable that all those teams won games. Look at the Raiders, especially being a very good Denver defense. Say we want about the offense, but Denver, they ran all over at Denver defense. Josh Jacobs, one of the most underappreciated players in the league. But I just think it's cool that, I bet you've spoken ad nauseum about how awesome Saquon looks. So it's just cool seeing these teams, like, they kind of realize either the quarterback limitations or the overall matchup. And it's just like, we could run the ball 30, 35 times, control the clock, and just produce 10, 15-yard plays. And saw it with Tennessee. They got back to their rhythm with Derrick Henry. We talked about the Falcons. Giants, they pretty much know Saquon is their offense, and it's just like, let's do it. And then Raiders in a must-win situation, they made it happen. So, and then Eagles, man, their versatility. They have the best offense line in the league, and Miles Sanders, he has that patience and vision as a runner. He was booming. So I think it's cool seeing these teams in, I think, a little bit difficult circumstances, because we do some of those games were on the East Coast, and we all know about the hurricane kind of affected some of those games. Look at the Giants game, look at the Eagles game. So adaptability is key. So kudos to these teams bringing back the running game and showing there's still value in it.
Can I give you a take about the running backs that I think you'll enjoy? And I'm definitely going to clip when I say this.
Okay.
Offensive player of the year this year is going to be a running back.
Saquon?
Chubb? One of them two.
Ooh.
You could get both of them at 15-1 odds right now still in some places.
Uh-huh.
I mean, who's having better offensive seasons than them two right now?
I mean, if Cooper Kupp gets getting targeted 19 times a game, we don't know what's going to happen.
Especially with no one else catching passes for them too. Like, yeah, you might be onto something. But it's, he won it. Cooper Kupp won it last year. And I think it's going to be hard for him to do what he did last year, because it's never happened before, right? It's the first time that we saw a season like that for a wide receiver, where he fell short of like one more half of football, he breaks all the records, like the catch record, the yardage record, he breaks all those records, right? So I think, to me, man, if these guys stay healthy, in particular Nick Chubb and Saquon Barkley, I think you're looking at the winners of Offensive Player of the Year. They're not going to win MVP, because we know that. So Offensive Player of the Year, why not do that and give it to the running backs, especially where Justin Jefferson, like, he was my pick coming in, and he's had 2 monster games and then 2 games where, not because of him, they just couldn't get on the ball. I think right now I would personally think that it's Chubb or Saquon. And speaking of Chubb, I think that segues nicely into one of the games that we're going to highlight, and it's the Chargers and the Browns this week. Allen, if you remember, it was around this time last year where these two teams played each other, and they had that wild comeback that the Chargers, they were playing in SoFi in LA. Now they're going to be playing in Cleveland. Cleveland is the underdog. They're a 3-point underdog right now. And the Chargers bounced back last week, beating the Houston Texans. And I think what I'm looking at for this game is this is something that could come down to playoff seeding later in the year. Like, I think both of these teams are going to be playoff candidates. They're going to be in the mix, and these head-to-heads are going to mean something. So from a future outlook and from how important this game is, it's in your conference. It's two teams that are going to be going, I would say, for wild card positioning based on how the rest of the division looks like. And I know Cleveland right now, they're at top of the division. Well, they're tied for the top of the division, but you still have that little apple that's dangling, which is Deshaun Watson. And what I mean by that is, with the football standpoint of the Deshaun Watson stuff, him coming back, I think this game is fascinating because it's also, this is the kind of team the Chargers don't want to play, Allen. A team that's going to run it down your throat and just ball possession the whole time.
Yeah, it's a problem for them because they haven't really improved when it comes to stopping the run. We saw Dameon Pierce break open a couple of big runs, including a 75-yarder last week. And
he's a dirty lamb, baby.
Yeah, Hilaire had that big run Thursday night. Just for all their investment, it's just at some point, I'm starting to question Brandon Staley. Like, I know he had that great run with the Rams, but it's just, they just always get gashed. And it just seems like the players don't know their fits. They get, at the point of attack, they get outmatched. Like, it's just, at some point, this defense has to put up the expectation. I know they lost Joey Bosa, which is devastating. J.C. Jackson doesn't look quite right since the knee surgery. It's just, man, we hype them up too much, and it just happens every single year. And like we talked about this matchup, like, this is not what they want, because the Browns' identity. Kevin Stefanski, one of the better play callers in the league, he knows how to attack this defense. Oof, I fear for them. But then again, on the other side of the ball, like, the Browns just allowed 202 rushing yards to the Falcons. And I know Chargers don't have a mauling offensive line, but the Chargers are going to be without Myles Garrett. I think Clowney's likely going to be out, and they don't have much on the interior. So crazy enough, we just talked about the running game, but I think whoever runs the ball better probably wins this game.
Well, I think you're being a little too harsh on them with the running yardage last week because they didn't have two of their guys. So
Right. No, but they're still not going to this week.
right. Well,
Like
Myles
Garrett, I believe,
Garrett,
is out 2 to 4 weeks.
yeah, I saw him practicing today.
Huh? Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
he
Okay,
took the
well.
field. Yeah, I saw a headline and it said 9 days after his car accident, he was out there. Now I don't know if it was walkthroughs or what it was exactly, but I did notice that he was out there. He was holding his helmet. So we'll definitely have to look into that. But one thing that I'm really worried about for the Chargers moving forward, man, is the health of Keenan Allen. I think now he's north of 30. He's been a guy who he's not so much injury prone. He gets a stigma of being injury prone because he suffered the torn ACL and then he had that spleen thing going on a couple of years ago. But he's been a guy who's been pretty reliable. But now you tweak a hamstring, and that's just going to linger the rest of the year. And especially for a guy like him out the slot, fast twitch muscles, trying to get open, I'd be a little concerned about that because he's so reliable for the first downs on third down, for being a guy who just has amazing chemistry with Justin Herbert. And if it wasn't for the game that he had last week, I'd be asking you, where is Austin Eckler? Like, what's been going on with him? But he got it going on the ground against Houston. How do you think this game plays out, though? Who you got?
Oof, this is a true 50-50 because
Yeah.
I think both teams are just true enigmas. I'm going to go with Cleveland, though. I'm going to believe in their coaching. I'm going to believe in the running game. And I do think something that gets a bit overlooked, Browns have excellent secondary. Like, Denzel Ward can match up with Mike Williams. I love John Johnson, Grant Delpit. Like, they got ball hawks back there. For all their issues up front, they have ball hawks back there. So it's like, I could see the Chargers struggling to move the ball a little bit, while the Browns, at least they have the recipe to move the ball around. They use play action better than almost anyone in the league. David Njoku, they're starting to get him going. I'm just not. I have there's little to be thrilled about the Chargers at the moment. Outside the quarterback play and a couple stars on the defense, it's just it's a frustrating watch for the Chargers right now. I don't know their identity. I'm questioning their coaching with Lombardi and Staley. So I'm going to trust the Browns.
It's hard to disagree with that, man. There's something Staley, like, you're just wasting time with him, I think, man. For you to be a defensive specialist,
damn, that's strong.
dude, think about it, right? Like, hasn't the aura around him faded the most of any of these coaches that have become a head coach in the last year or two? Like, he came in, coach of the year. Yeah. He's the next guy, the McVay tree, and now you're seeing this stuff, and nothing has really improved much. And he captured everyone's hearts going for it on fourth down. You know how it got me bricked up because I love going for it on fourth down. I love going for it on 2-point conversions when I have a guy like Justin Herbert. So to me, at this point, I think you're just holding on to dead weight right now with him.
Wow. I don't know if I want to go that far. I think Joe Lombardi, offense coordinator, is dead weight. Justin Herbert's 31st in the league in average depth of target. It's like him and Kyler Murray. Like, they're just throwing it in the short intermediate areas. They're rarely taking shots downfield. You have a quarterback who's superhuman. Like, what is holding you back at this point? So I do think at some point they got to replace offense coordinator, and then we'll see with Staley. But I'm with you. Like, there's literally to be thrilled about right now. But who are you picking?
Man, you know what it comes down to, bro? I just can't.
Your guy.
Well, but in this matchup too, like Brissett and Herbert, I think there's it's a 3-point line right now, and I think that's a mistake because I think the quarterbacks alone is such a massive, massive difference. But then you have the trenches, which is going to be super concerning, right? Especially if Myles Garrett comes now with no Slater out for the year, and you got Clowney opposite of that if he was to come back. And the Brown, you know what the Browns are going to do. They're going to give it to Nick Chubb 25, 30 times. Well, they would like to. And then you got Kareem Hunt. And then even Amari Cooper is making some plays. Peoples-Jones and the tight end, Njoku, he's playing pretty well. But I'm going to go with the Chargers just because I think the quarterback matchup it's going to come down to like a 3rd and 8, 3rd and 7. And who do you trust to convert it more? Got to be Herbert. So I'm going to go with the Chargers. Debate. Yeah, I'm going to go with the Chargers. I want to pivot to the other LA team because personally, I'm not that excited about watching this game, though I think the most fascinating matchup of the weekend is the D line for the Cowboys against the O line for the Rams. Because this Rams offensive line, Allen, boy, is it bad. And now you got the pass rush from the Cowboys coming in, the best pass rush in the league right now on all metrics, whether it comes to sacks or QB hits and pressures. Man, this could be a long day for Stafford in this offense, who already is having long days.
Yeah, we're really going to see what Sean McVay is made of. Like, we kind of know what the Rams' offense is, but what can McVay do from a schematic standpoint? I know he likes throwing a lot of screens, a lot of play actions, a lot of naked bootlegs, but oh man, how do you protect it? Because ironically enough, years ago, Dan Quinn was one of the first coaches to really get to Sean McVay's offense. Like in that Falcons Rams playoff game, like McVay took the lead by scoring in 2017. But that wild card weekend, Quinn's defense kind of shut him down. So Dan Quinn does have experience, and I think Dan Quinn's done a fantastic job them defensively. Like Dallas has really responded from adversity really well. Like neither of us were high on them going into the year, but they're slowly getting better defensively. They're getting contributions elsewhere. Like I've seen Dante Fowler make more plays in 4 weeks with the Cowboys than 2 years with the Falcons. Like it's ridiculous. And then obviously you saw DeMarcus Lawrence what he did against the Giants. And to me, I think another
Giant
thing
killer, by the way. Giant killer. Anytime he plays the Giants, dude. The year before he got paid, he had like 6 sacks against the Giants in one game. Not one game, in the 2 games. It was like, yo, his agent is probably presenting the Giants film. Like, dude, this is a $20 million DN. And he owes some money to like Eric Flowers and those guys.
I don't know if this is a strong take, but I think this game also features 2 of the most terrifying, dominant defensive players in the league. I think I would put Micah Parsons as number 2 behind Aaron Donald.
Nope, not anymore. I think Parsons has surpassed him. Yeah, Parsons can beat you in so many more ways. He can cover running backs out the backfield. He could blitz standing up. He could put his hand in the ground. Like this dude is the best offensive player in football right now. He surpassed Aaron Donald for me.
Oh, wow. You surpassed Donald. See, I thought you were going to be concerned about TJ Watt and Garrett, but you think it was even surpassed Donald.
Yeah. Because, TJ Watt's the best pass rusher in the league, in my opinion. Like, purely like, it's 3rd and 8. I need someone to get a sack. I'm taking TJ Watt. But if you want a game wrecker right now in football, is number 11 on the Cowboys. And I personally, I would argue hard against that because I think this dude we throw the word generational around often, but this guy is that in every sense of the word.
I thought he pretty much won them that game against Cincinnati. He was sending Lyle Collins to the turf. He was drawing penalties. He was covering. Like, it's just to have this type of player that you can build your defense around is scary. And wow, that Cowboys defense, they've really saying. I totally forgot about Anthony Barr. He's another timely signing that's proving to be a difference maker. Like, they don't have to bank on Leighton Vander Esch that much anymore. Obviously, Jalen Smith's out there. Like, they finally got a linebacker who they could depend on too.
And dude, what about with Parsons also? I think the craziest thing for him, like I mentioned, is the versatility for sure. But you mentioned the Bengals game, him being a game wrecker. I know they lost to Tampa Bay, but he had 3 stops in the red zone because of him that they settled for field goals. Yeah. Like that first half was close. Yeah, that first half was close because of him. Like if he's not on the field, they score touchdowns. Everyone's turning off that Sunday night football game. Like he's the best defensive player in football right now. And I wish like 2 weeks ago he was like plus 600 to win Defensive Player of the Year. Now he's the favorite. He's 2-1. So everyone's agreeing with my take from a betting standpoint. But man, the whole total package. And if you're Matthew Stafford in this offense, who it's basically now it's only Cooper Kupp. At least last year, towards the tail end, second half of the year, and in the playoffs, you have to worry about Odell also. What happened to Allen Robinson?
I just think they got to find a way to use him. Like at this point, because he has no deep speed. Like he runs these routes, you could just tell he's not burning anymore at this point. At this point, he's just someone that is a good route runner, and you just kind of got to use him in the short intermediaries. But here's the problem: Stafford always looks at cover areas, so like automatically, and you have also Higbee getting like 6 to 7 targets a game. So Allen Robinson, he might be like the most expensive decoy ever.
Dude, I was so high on him coming into the year. Maybe I gave
Me
him the
too.
kiss of death. I don't know. But I was saying double-digit touchdowns. I think he could be a 1,200-yard receiver because it was going to be hard for Kupp to do what he did last year. It's just difficult, right? Because now you'd probably expect teams to be able to key him more or to bring more attention to it. Though he just killed San Francisco on Monday Night Football again. But like you mentioned, 19 targets. But Allen Robinson, best offense he's been in his career, best quarterback situation he's been in. He's not asked to be the number one wide receiver, and he's like, I'm thinking about dropping him in some leagues. Well, I'm in only one league and I have him, but I'm
Yeah,
thinking
me
like,
too.
dude, this guy is taking up a roster spot. Like I haven't started him the last 2 weeks, and even the week, I think the week he had like 11 points, I didn't start him either. Like I'm just
Oh,
not
I saw.
confident.
Yeah, it's crazy because he actually roasted AJ Terrell on a goal line fade. See, they only target Allen Robinson on goal line fades, oddly enough, because he has such a good release at the line of scrimmage. It's just, I think the lack of protection, but ultimately, the Rams' depths really need a deep threat. Like when Odell is healthy, they need to get him in there immediately because I don't know what Van Jefferson's health status is, but that offense has just no explosiveness right now. And there's a stat where it comes to big plays, uh, runs of 10 or more, or passes of 20 yards or more, the Rams are dead last. It's actually the Bengals and the Rams. Crazy. The two Super Bowl teams have the fewest explosive plays in the league right now.
You never would have guessed that too.
So, yep.
Maybe you would guess the Rams if you had to pick one of the two. But wow, yeah, that's pretty alarming, man.
And it also kind of shows you how much bad offense line play can affect you.
Yeah. Who you got in this game?
We haven't really so much any thoughts on the Cowboys offense. Cooper Rush. We give him any credit here.
I mean, look, let's also remember last year I kept telling you from like the halfway point, like, yo, I can't wait to bet against the Cowboys, right? I've had a pretty good grasp on what to make of Dallas. I love what Cooper Rush is doing. He's doing what they're asking him to do. Keep the shit afloat until that comes. Alan, they're not exactly playing the most vicious defenses or the most
Yeah,
vicious offenses, right? Like even if you go to the Bengals game, it's a makeshift offensive line for Cincinnati. That's the second time they all play together. I think their offensive line has played better the last 2 weeks, and it's only going to get better with all these additions that they made. But they played the Giants, Washington, and the Bengals offensive lines. Tampa Bay, it was Parsons that was running wild. Outside of that, it wasn't much else that was making noise. So
yeah.
I want to see them now going into LA. Might be a 50-50 crowd. There's going to be a lot of Cowboys fans there, especially in Los Angeles. But I think, to me, I don't want to call them a fraud because I think I'm shocked that they're 3-1, especially without Dak. But to me, I think we just need to chill a little bit. The running game will only get better when Zeke is no longer playing with them, because it is just like, and more people are tweeting the things I was saying in 2019 and in 2020. Like the offense, the eye test. Forget your analytics. I don't care about your yards per carry. Sometimes the eyes don't lie, right? The eyes don't lie, Chico. Isn't that from Scarface, Allen? And just
Oh,
watching the games, Pollard with the same offense, same offensive line, is just way more explosive and way more productive. So to me, their offense is kind of whatever, right? And Cooper Rush is just doing what he has to do. So that's how I feel about their offense. But to me, this game, it's a bigger game for the Rams. Coming off a loss, prime time, everybody is pretty not soured, but they're kind of turned off by you. I heard some commentary stuff about like, oh, was it a fluke last year that they won the Super Bowl? It's like, nah, man, they were one of the best teams in the league and they won the Super Bowl. Like, let's not get it twisted. But to me, I think it's a bigger game for the Rams, and I am leaning towards the Rams winning this game.
okay. I'm going with the Cowboys. I'm
Oh,
not.
interesting. Okay.
I just think it's a mismatch right now. As much as I don't want to trust Mike
Yeah.
McCarthy, I think Cooper Rush doesn't turn the ball over. The Rams just seem no stability offensively. Now I don't even think their defense is that fearsome. I think we're starting to see I know you love FM picks, but they can sure use some picks on both offensive line and defensive line. They just don't look right in the trenches, and it's going to come back to haunt them. It is currently coming back to haunt them. So I'm not confident about it, but I'm going to go Dallas. And I definitely also want to credit. I think Trayvon Diggs is having a sensational season. He's finally becoming more disciplined. Hasn't allowed to catch over 20 yards. Shut down Terry McLaurin last week. I want to see him what he can do against Cup. That should be a hell of a matchup.
Well, he's playing corner better than he did last year. Last year, he just had all those interceptions, which kind of had people saying, "Oh, he's the best DB in the league." It's like, not really, man. He gave up like 1,000 yards last year. Dude was getting cooked too, but he was making plays also. So, Allen, the game, I think it's the game of the week, honestly, and it's two teams in the AFC North. We got the Bengals going to play the Ravens, and Allen, there's not many people that love revenge games and games in which you circle, right? This is a game that I think all Ravens fans, all Ravens players, they circled. Because last year, the Bengals didn't beat them, Allen. They beat the shit out of them last year. Twice.
Got humiliated.
They got embarrassed. And guess what started happening in Cincinnati? They started yapping. And rightfully so. They put up 41 points on them, not once, twice. This was the matchup that put Jamar Chase first on the map, where he had that 200-yard game that first time that they played each other. And then this is the same matchup when people were like, yo, the Bengals are for real, bro. Like, this is to do what you did to Baltimore. Yeah, maybe the first time was a little fluky. We didn't know what this rookie wide receiver was going to be. We didn't know Joe Burrow was going to bounce back the way he did. But that second one, bro, remember they beat the Chiefs and the Ravens maybe back-to-back or twice in a 3-week stretch. It was a coming out party. And then they were talking like, yo, it goes through us now, AFC North, we're the cream of the crop. And Lamar and them are like, all right, I bet. Y'all go learn. And they're playing this game Sunday night in Baltimore. It's a 3-point line. Ravens are bringing out the all-black units, the all-black uniforms. It's going to be a banger, bro. Tell me where you're at with this game and how you feel about everything that I mentioned about it.
The hype is definitely there. Just both these teams are so mysterious right now. Like, they're both not quite firing all cylinders, but you're encouraged enough where it's just like, okay, we kind of know they're going to be playoff teams. I know Cincinnati, the offensive line issues, defense kind of holding up, but not really making much improvements. But I want to see more from Cincinnati. Mainly Zach Taylor, just still frustrating as ever. Like, I want to see this offense let loose. I know the offense line is an issue, but it just seems like they're not getting Chase involved as much as they should. Because to me, Chase, top 3, top 5 wide receiver, and we know how good T. Higgins is, but just the lack of explosive plays at Chase, something's got to give. And I think you watch that tape against Miami, I wonder what they could do or they could take from that to go against this Ravens secondary, because I think one of the bigger disappointments this year has to be the Ravens secondary. I think a lot of people had high expectations for them. Invested a lot in Marcus Williams, Marcus Pierce coming back. They have Marlon Humphrey. They're getting lit up right now. So this is a matchup where it's just like, man, we got to see the Cincinnati pass game going. Like, let's see those 30, 40-yard plays. Well, from a Ravens standpoint, just like at some point the secondary's got to get on track, because it was embarrassing against Miami, and I thought they got lit up against New England too. So it's a fascinating one. I think a lot to prove for both teams.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting, man, because it's very concerning what's happened to Baltimore in their 2 losses, because those 2 losses are 2 losses that the Ravens historically don't suffer. You want to play with a big lead if you're the Ravens because of how your offensive scheme is and how deadly Lamar is running the ball and the running backs, and just for you to blow those leads is super alarming. And if it happened once, it's like, cool, man. Shit happens, right? Like what happened with Miami, shit happens. However, when it happens again, and you're at home in both of those meetings, it's a little concerning. So I think Baltimore needs to fix that up. And you're right. Like, the secondary was such a bright spot. Not bright spot, but it was supposed to be a strength of the team moving into this year, especially with getting a lot of their guys back. But like Kyle Hamilton, he hasn't really done anything. And he was, of course he was going to go to the Ravens. He hasn't. It's been kind of you've been kind of mid, if that, and that might be polite too. To me, it comes down to, I think Lamar Jackson and the Ravens are going to be fired up for this game. It's prime time. They're at home, and they need to put their foot down against the Bengals to reestablish dominance in that division. And also, it's your third home game now, bro. You can't afford to be losing these games at home, especially when you're Baltimore, who's been so dominant at home too. So I personally think that this is a classic, we're going to remind you who we are kind of game from Lamar and the Ravens. And I personally think it's a double-digit win for Baltimore.
Aren't you concerned potentially no Bateman? I know he's dealing with a mild foot sprain.
Yeah, definitely, because I feel like he's emerged as their top target. Obviously, Mark Andrews is their number one, like, complete receiver, but he's a tight end also. And Bateman's been playing pretty well, man. They have some really good chemistry, and there's not much behind him that I trust. So he's very similar to how I feel about Michael Pittman, where I feel like Michael Pittman is the class of that wide receiver room. And then after that, it's very, very rough on the eyes and in the stat sheets. So, yeah, it's going to be concerning. But I think at home with the running game, they got Dobbins going a little bit last week, and that was nice to see for a guy that suffered an injury like he did and him coming back. I think the defense is going to step up more so than the offense is, and it's going to be they know what Chase did to them last year, bro. They're coming for revenge.
I'm surprised very definitively picking the Ravens here because, like, I don't know, the Ravens, they're pretty much banking on their secondary and blitzing because they can't get pressure with their front four. Like, they just got Jason Pierre-Paul out of desperation. So they're not really getting much. I like just Buike, the nose tackle. But besides that, they don't have much juice up front. Like it's weird what the Ravens are. They're not running the ball as well outside of Lamar. It just seems like kind of like the Rams are banking on their stars to like win them games. Yeah, and as well as they are coached, like I'm kind of over Greg Roman as a play caller. Like I wish they got rid of him a few years ago because he just cannot construct a passing game. Phenomenal with the running game, but cannot. Like I just think Lamar is kind of in superhero mode. But I am with you though. Like if we're picking, I'm picking the Ravens just purely off not really trusting Cincinnati, and Lamar has these games where he goes superhero mode, and I just think Bengals they're kind of slow defensively, and the Ravens are going to exploit that.
So you got the Bengals?
No, I'm with the Ravens.
Oh, you are. Oh, but you're saying me definitive with the blowout, right?
Yeah, I think the Ravens will win, but it's going to be kind of a little ugly. I think it's going to be competitive, but I don't think it's going to be like a shootout. I think these teams are going to show through. And your team has been running the ball very well. God, watching the Bengals try to run the ball last Thursday night.
Oh, yeah.
God, I want to put my head through a wall watching. Like, dude, they couldn't do anything. And, like, the Ravens haven't been much better outside of Lamar. So, like, I'm excited about this game due to rivalry, but I'm not thrilled with either team at the moment. But, I do think both these teams have a lot to prove, which is why it raises the stakes.
Yeah, man, we got spoiled with those first two Thursday night football games, and then it's been kind of wacky. This tomorrow, well, today, if you're listening to the show, it's not a game I'm excited about, and the next week I think is Chicago, Washington. So
we're back to peak Thursday night football.
Peak Thursday night
Amazon's like we gave you a few to start the season, but now we're gonna give you the classics. Jaguars Titans are coming soon, probably.
Yeah. Hey, Allen, it was good to see you, man. Good to chop it up with you. I'm excited to have you back on and doing this. Glad you're doing well. Glad your Falcons are doing well because then I know your content you're more inspired to do it. Because as someone that I used to have to shoot videos, dude, for this company, and it was covering the Knicks when Porzingis got hurt, and then it was covering the Giants like the year they took Evan Ingram in the draft. And it sucks when your team is winning 3 games a year for you to come out and be like, ha, 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 it's awesome. Nah, it's not like that. So
it's a grind, man.
It's a grind. Tell the people where they can find you, dude.
Allen Strk, ALENSTRK. I just wrote this huge piece on just Arthur Smith's vision finally coming to light of how the past year and a half he's been building the Falcons roster. Now, it really came together against Cleveland. It was a special win for the organization. So, and also I just gave a brief preview. Like the Falcons' next 3 games are Tampa Bay, San Fran, and Cincinnati. So they got some big litmus tests. So I'm definitely intrigued, and I think we might be talking about the Falcons a little bit more on this pod compared to what we've been doing the past 3 years.
At Nick Diaz 10 is where you can find me. At Veterans Minimum is where you can find everything for the show. Veteransminimum.com. Enjoy week 5, and we will be back with some VM next week. Later, legends.